Yaya was telling me last night. She said she appreciates the discussion here because she said she is now less angry now. She finds she is has more moment of being calm. John?
If there is no understanding of Dhamma, can there be the moment of being true to Dhamma? Everyone knows anger as I'm angry. But is anger a Dhamma, a reality, conditioned? That's why when there is a little more understanding of Dhamma, there can be condition for letting go, the clinging to Dhamma, even to anger. So at the moment of being angry, what is there as the conditions for its arising? If there's no understanding of the conditions for anger to arise, it's impossible to have less anger. We can notice that anger does not arise as usual as before or as often as before. At that moment, it's not true to anger because there's no understanding of anger. That's why there can be a little more understanding of Dhamma, even anger, as there can be the understanding of other Dhamma. So how come the moment of get angry in a day at different situations? And the conditions for anger to arise is the attachment to sensuous objects through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. Because in the day, the object appears through these 5 doorways, one by one. There can be anger at the moment of seeing something one dislikes, and hearing the sound or the word that one dislikes, and the smell which is there when it's smelled, and the taste when it's too hot or too spicy, that one dislikes, or the story about the 5 objects through the 5 sense doors. And there cannot be no clinging to these objects at all, as long as there's no understanding and be true to each one. When one has more clinging to the 5 sensuous objects, it's impossible not to have anger. Is it true? Less clinging to the 5 sense doors, less anger. By understanding this, there can be a condition for having less attachment to whatever is there, experienced to the 5 sense doors. Otherwise, one would like to try to have no anger, but as long as they are clinging to the sense objects so much, it's impossible not to have conditions for anger to arise. In the day, one can notice and one can learn to understand the moment of anger, how come for it to arise, if there's no attachment to that object to be something different from when it is unpleasant. But ignorance is opposite of understanding. It tries so much in different ways to have pleasant object and more pleasant all the time. Is it wrong? Led by attachment, clinging, all the way. And that's the way it is. That's why only right understanding of the truth of what is there can be letting go little by little, that it's dangerous to have attachment so much. And it is impossible to not having the attachment to the sense object because it has been accumulated so long, years and years ago. That's why anger cannot be eradicated. Attachment cannot be eradicated until there is the understanding of the truth of each one as it is, what is kusala and what is not kusala. Is attachment kusala? Even one say it's a kusala, but it has to be there by conditions, because there is ignorance of the truth of it. Even one tries so hard to have less attachment, but it cannot be eradicated. It has to begin with the understanding of the truth that even right now there is nothing permanent at all. And no matter what is there is conditioned to arise just at that very short moment and then gone. How can it be something or I who like this or that? That's why all kinds of akusala cannot be eradicated without right understanding of the truth of it. So just begin now, understanding the truth of whatever is there now, as it cannot be taken for anything permanent as thing or self or I at all. Without the teachings of the Buddha about the conditions for whatever arises, it's impossible for anyone to let go the idea of self and thing conditioned by ignorance. So be true to Dhamma when there is the understanding of what Dhamma is, one by one. For anger, for example, it's there, but it's I all the time. That is wrong. No understanding, not being true to anger as it is, because of no understanding of it. And how can there be the moment of being true to anger without understanding it? It's impossible. It's so very simple to say that anger is not anyone, is not self. But how to know that it's not self and it's not anyone when there's no understanding that it is a reality which experiences the object? And the truth of its characteristic is taught by the Buddha in many ways. So I think that Kunjuratan understands Bali to help us to understand the meaning of Patigha or dosa or anger.
Well, thank you, Ajahn, but I'm afraid my Pali is not so good as I would be able to analyze dosa.
But the meaning of the word Patigha, what does it mean?
Sorry, I'm not.
Even we don't use any proper term to understand it, to translate it, but it can be gradually, directly understanding its nature as at the moment when it's like something hit, crash. It's different from usually normal moment as seeing and hearing so on. When it's not dosa, something goes on as usual, normal. But when dosa is there, it's different. It's like being hit by something very unpleasant. Is the dosa now? Still. But when it's there, it's like a moment of being hit mentally. So at that very moment, it dislikes that object at all. So it's just a moment different from normal life when there's no dosa. And there are many degrees of all kinds of Dhamma. Even very slight unpleasant feeling, dosa is there. Being hit by the object. So from now on, there can be some moment by condition to understand that moment as it's a reality which is not pleasant at all. Just to learn about what is there in life from moment to moment, different ones all the time. When there is the moment of I am angry, it's not being true to anger because no understanding. It's taken to be I instantly. That's why the words being true to Dhamma needs understanding to be true to Dhamma. No one can force it to arise at will or try to have it, but it's there already by conditions to be known when there are the understanding of its truth. That's why we are now to learn to understand the truth of reality as they are. one by one. So now there is the understanding that the conditions for dosa to arise is the clinging to the sensuous objects. So in a day, there can be moments of understanding what conditioned dosa right then. And from moment of understanding right now, it can condition moment of whenever dosa is there, there can be the understanding of the clinging to that object, which is destroy or lost, and it conditions dosa. Is there a question about dosa? Can a Sotapanna be angry? They are clinging to sensuous object, not eradicated yet, until being Anagami, no attachment to sensuous object anymore. So it's useless to try to have no dosa because it's impossible. But beginning to develop the understanding and have firm confidence of the truth of no self, little by little, can condition moment of understanding what is what. To be truthful to the truth of Dhamma and to be true to Dhamma at moment when it's there. Even understanding intellectually can condition moment of have less dosa, not at will, but by conditions, understanding the characteristic and the danger of it. But lopa is lurking somewhere at the corner all the time. That's why Yaya having less dosa, because she listened to the truth of dosa and begin to understand it, but not as it is. No one yet, but it can be conditioned for having less dosa. If she has listened and if she has no understanding of reality at all, can there be less akutla? Not only dosa, but also ignorance too. Very, very gradually, but it's there, enrooted, little by little. It's so very, very little because it's unknown, even right now. Less ignorance about the truth, about dosa, and about reality. Little by little, but it's there by its function. That's why without listening to the truth of each Dhamma, it's impossible to have conditions to understand what is there now as no thing and no one. And so what is true and what is not true. Be truthful to the truth. The development of Satya Bharami is moment of understanding what is true and what is not true. The gradual development of understanding is unknown, so very little at the time. Is that true?